potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. Today we are going to start a series on how to fire an employee. Now this is one of the hardest things to do as a business owner. It sucks. It really sucks. Even if you have somebody else doing it, making that decision sucks. So this first video, we're going to go over how we can start to preempt some of this and look at the team that you currently have right now. So that way we can figure out where we're at and who we potentially might need to fire as an assessment. The next video is really going to go into how we can set up the expectations better next time. So that way we don't have to put ourselves in this position again and they almost sort of opt out themselves because they see the trajectory of them going down. And then the third video is all about the actual meeting. I literally have my clients text me or call me right beforehand because it's not a fun thing to have to do. And debriefing right after it can make a big difference. And so I'm here for my clients and going through all the crap that they're going through because it's an up and down kind of thing. And please don't think that you're a bad human being for firing someone. Your business needs this. Okay, so that's the series that we're going over. Now, of course, one caveat, talk to a lawyer before you go through anything. Each state has different laws. Okay. So one of the things that I adore that Doug Guller said, he's one of the millionaires that I interviewed. He actually grew to over 500 employees with a bunch of different restaurants that he owns in just a few years. And he said, yes, you should definitely be slow to hire, quick to fire. That's sort of the adage that we should be going by. But what he said is all that in between, we should be paying attention to those A players. And that the lower ones that aren't really A players, they're going to start to, you're going to notice. The ones on the bottom, we don't want to be giving our attention if they're failing, right? And it will slowly, the cream will rise to the top, the A players will go up. You'll be able to recognize way easier who is an A player versus who isn't. Okay, and this is actually something that I got from my mentor. I'm pretty sure he got it from a book, but I cannot remember which one it was. So that's the caveat on this. This is what I do with all of my clients. When we first initially start, we go, okay, what does your team look like? Show me your org chart. And if they don't have an org chart, we definitely create that. We have a link below that goes into how to create your org chart. So you have that in case you don't have one already. That being said, we go through every team member and I ask them this question. Are they an A, a B, a C, or an F, okay? Now, nobody ever says that they're an F because they know what I'll say. I'll say fire them, right? Nobody ever says F because they would have already fired them most likely if they knew that they were an F. The biggest thing is that when we go through this list and I let them finish, we go through every single one. Who are they? What are they? What are they? What are they? What are they? Create that big old list. And I highly recommend you doing that right now. We'll provide a worksheet for you to go through. Then when we start going through, and sometimes we're only talking about like one or two employees. So this is what I say. If one person is a C, I go, if they're a C, fire them. C players will never be an A player. That being said, if you say B, the next question that I ask is, can you train them to be an A? Because sometimes it's your problem that's not being really, really great at training, especially as a small business owner. It can be hard to try and really pay attention and give enough training. So with enough training, could this person be an A? If that answer is a yes, awesome. We really need to put more into training them. If that answer is a no, and you're like, no, they're just gonna be a B minus. I just didn't wanna say C, right? Sometimes that comes up. Then you fire them also. And again, you're not gonna go through and slash and fire everybody. Doug, who's a consultant for Culture Index that I had on the show, who also had a multi-million-dollar business, not accidentally, ended up doing that. And he had over 100 employees. He slashed them, all the ones that said they weren't good fits. And then, of course, that caused all sorts of problems. And he's like, probably wouldn't have done that if I went back. So please don't go and just fire a bunch of people. Of course, we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to make everything run smoothly, even if we do have to fire somebody. But that being said, you want to have those things written down so that way we can really pay attention to our A players. We don't want A players stuck in a team that's a bunch of C's because those A players will leave and you'll be stuck with a bunch of C's. That's why you fire them. So that's the first step. What David Long said, and I adore his interview, we'll definitely link to that also in the show notes. He says, if you can't fix them, you fire them. Okay, so that's why we're asking that question. Is it possible? Maybe they're just new. Maybe they don't have the skill set that they need. That's what we're trying to figure out, and that's what you're writing down so we know what our organization looks like, who needs help, who doesn't, who we really need to reward for going fast and being A players and really give our attention to so that they can keep driving the company forward. Okay, so that is number one. We really need to start to assess the current team that we have. So that's video number one. Go ahead and check out that worksheet below so we can get more information on what you need to do in the next step. Okay, on to step two. And this is where it might actually take a little bit of time because we don't want to just fire people as fast as humanly possible if we haven't given them a chance. Again, consult your lawyer how this goes. So I'm going to walk through a couple steps that I want you to actually pay attention to. And this is something that you should be doing with all of your employees, by the way, not just for the people that you want to fire or think you want to fire, because this will really set the stage for you to know if they're performing or if they're not, and who you need to hire, who you need to fire and when. Okay, so step number one, we need to set super clear expectations. What that means is when you hire somebody on, make sure they have a metric or KPI that they are responsible for that you can measure against. And I know some type of job description, some type of employees, you won't have an easy job. It's not like sales where if they don't hit their quota, it's easy to see. But you can normally put in some type of metric. So that way they do have something to be judged by that is numeric instead of just, you didn't do a very good job. Okay, so what you want to be able to have is some data to refer to. So number one is to set up expectations in advance. Number two, and actually I have a whole post on eventualmillionaire.com/metrics for business metrics, okay? So if you want more information on how to figure out what you're going to be using for your metrics, you can go ahead there. Number two, make sure you have consistent employee reviews, whether it be quarterly or yearly, whatever you feel like you can actually do as a company, but having those consistent employee reviews where you're measuring that KPI and you're like, look where we came from. Are we improving or are we not improving? And again, this is of course simple and every corporation uses something like this. But what I found when we're working with small business owners is this sort of gets pushed off to the wayside. So what will happen is because it's not necessarily urgent, it'll end up being 6 months. And even though they're supposed to be quarterly, or they'll forget and be like, oh, when did I do it last time? So set up a system where it is in your calendar every single quarter, if that's what you choose, and you consistently do it with your employees no matter what. Because if you don't, this is where things can sort of get away from you and you won't even realize how long it's been since you've done an employee review. Not good, okay? And if you start noticing that somebody might need to be fired, you're gonna go, oh shoot, I should do an employee review so we can talk about it. Okay, so if it seems like when you do the review, or it just seems like in general, one of your employees is not really keeping up with it, whether they're an older employee that has been with you for a long time, not older in age, but older in time with the company, or a brand new employee that you brought in that just isn't really working out very much. Step number 3 is a question of, is this a common behavior? The reason why we ask that is because we are all human beings. And we all have something in our lives that could distract us from the job that we're doing. If you get a divorce, if you're getting married, if you're having kids, if there's anything like that that is in their personal life right now, that is the reason why they're having these behaviors. Maybe they're having medical issues and they're not telling you about it. Okay, or maybe they are telling you about it and you're like, oh yeah, but they should get their work done. The thing is that we are all humans, and if they're an A player normally, but for some reason just have something going on, we do need to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? Okay, so step number 4, what we really want to do is keep records, because this is where the lawyer stuff comes in. If you cannot prove over the period of time that you've given them ample time and really explained some of those things, that's where lawsuits could happen. So we want to make sure, again, talk to your lawyer, but make sure that we're keeping records. What I personally like to do is I love giving chances. I'm probably not as fast to fire as I should be in my own team. I'm great with my clients because I have no attachment. With my own team, there's emotions involved. So what I try and do is we usually have a 3-month plan. And then I do a verbal warning. Okay, so, hey, this isn't really going. Maybe we could work on this. Okay, everybody's all under the same thing. And I write down in my notes in this employee review notes section that nobody has access to, what I said to them and when. Okay. Then if it still seems to be a problem after the verbal warning, we will definitely do a written warning. Okay, and the written one is like, this is what's happened, and we can put some templates for you. But again, it's mostly that you should talk to a lawyer because they won't be viable unless not, quote unquote. I just have to say that over and over and over again so I don't get in trouble. But you want to have some sort of template. I've even had my employees look over it and sign it. What I look for in that is that everybody's on the same page. Right? We want to make sure that they know exactly what's expected of them because maybe that became unclear. So when we do a written one, what I usually ask for after that is a 30-day improvement plan from the employee. So they note it, written warning, darn it. They're probably not happy about it, but it definitely gives them the warning that they need to step up or else they're going to be fired. Okay? Again, I offer probably more leeway than you might want, just because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. If it's somebody that you really feel like you believe in, give them the benefit of the doubt. If you don't, and you know that this is not really the person that's going to be with your organization for 3 to 5 years, then fire them as fast as you can, right? After checking with your lawyer. Okay, so the reason why I say that though is I really want everybody to be super clear. We keep it written so that way your records are there, everybody signs it, and then we have a 30-day improvement plan, which is also usually emailed to me and noted in their folder. When we have that improvement plan, I ask for very specific actions delivered by them, so that way it's easy to see after 30 days if they did it or not, whether it be metrics or whatever. Okay? And I've had in the past stuff like this come up where you're like, oh, after 30 days, they didn't do it. Like, it's very clear that they didn't do it. So you have those records. Hey, you said you were going to do this. You wrote it, and yet you didn't do it. So there we go. Easy peasy. They should know that it's coming. So once you keep your records, it'll be way easier. Plus, it feels better as an entrepreneur that you did everything that you could. Okay, I've had a client actually fire someone that had been with them for 10 years, but they were just dropping and dropping and dropping and tried so many times to get them back up to snuff. Keep going, keep going. And it's rough. It's really, really rough. But the question that you need to ask yourself in all of this on whether or not we should be firing someone is, what does my business need? Okay, so the final question is, what does my business need? Pretend the business is a separate entity, not you as the business owner. Pretend it's a separate entity. And most of the time when we get that emotional pull away, you can go, my business says I should fire this person, right? Because we're not just trying to be human to human. Of course, we want to help people that are human. If they have kids, if they have no sort of backup plan, it's really rough. We're going to talk about in the next video exactly how to fire somebody in the meeting setting to try and make it as quick and painless as humanly possible. But before that, we need to get you really solid and really clear that firing is the best decision. So when you do, you don't rethink it later because you don't want to be like, maybe I shouldn't have fired them, right? We want it super clear so you understand that this is the right next step for your business. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions down below in the comments or in the show notes, or send us an email. Our email is contact@eventualmillionaire.com so we can answer your questions. And stay tuned for step video number 3. Step video number 3 coming at you. How to fire an employee, the actual meeting. This is, again, one of the hardest things ever to do, but we have 4 steps for you to try and make it a little bit easier. I personally like to breathe a lot, tell a friend and be like, oh, this is gonna suck. and then go back to it, because emotionally it's hard as a business owner, especially if you've invested in them and really care about them as a human being. That being said, step number 1. Please, once you are completely clear, you need to figure out exactly when you are going to fire them. Most people say do it as soon as humanly possible, but I know sometimes there has to be planning and prepping that goes along. So if you've already done like the 30-day improvement plan, then you should know this is coming either way. So the day that you actually cut it, you should know well in advance. But if you don't, set the date in advance. There's back and forth as far as what day of the week you should really do it. Some people say that you should do it Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday morning so they have a chance to collect unemployment and start their job search. Other people say do it Friday afternoon so they have the whole weekend to relax because there's less incidences of anger and coming back at you because they have some time to chill. To me, it doesn't necessarily matter. It sucks either way. So just decide whatever is easiest and best for you as far as the date and time to do it. So what you want to do is create a plan. You want to figure out what you need to have replaced from this employee before we actually do the firing. Because if there's something that they're responsible for, we need to make sure we have somebody else that can take over, especially if it's in a critical time for a project that you're working on. Do they need a severance? What are the logistics behind their final paycheck? What are they going to be doing in terms of health insurance or anything like that? You want to flesh all of that stuff out in advance before you talk to them so we can deliver it in a nice, clear, easy way during the meeting. So also, you're going to want to decide as far as once they submit to unemployment, like what that reason is and if they're going to be able to get it or not. Again, you don't have to talk to them about this piece. I'll talk to your lawyer, but we want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before that happens. So step number 2, once we have that date and sort of the plan logistic wise, create a checklist of exactly what needs to happen beforehand. Most likely you're going to have to change passwords, a lot of different passwords. So hopefully you use something like LastPass or something easy to change a lot of passwords at once, or you have an IT team that can change the passwords for you. Ideally, you want to do it right before you actually go into the meeting. So if you're doing it on a Friday afternoon, make sure that it's not done by IT at the beginning of the day and they're like, how come all my passwords aren't working right now? Because that creates a whole bunch of issues also. You also want to make sure that you're going to be forwarding the email address, any other things in the checklist that you started to figure out because of the planning from beforehand. Okay. To me, face-to-face is best, but in this day and age of virtual employees, sometimes you have to do it virtually and it is what it is. So let them know right before the meeting. Okay. You don't want to be like, by the way, on Friday at 3:00, we have to talk. Okay. You want to make sure that we're doing it right before, no matter if they're a virtual employee or if they're not. So once you have your checklist and you know what to do, we want to also decide, number 3 is to really try and minimize the impact on them and everybody else. So make sure we've got maybe a script written out, and we're going to go through exactly what to do during the meeting in just a second. But have a script written down, especially so you don't freeze if this is one of your first times doing it. Try and be as efficient as humanly possible, but also plan on where the meeting is so it's not affecting a bunch of your other employees. So keep it private, especially if emotions come out, they end up crying or getting angry. You want to make sure that they have that space away from other employees. You also want to think about not doing it alone. If you do have somebody in HR, making sure that they're there so you have another person in case something does happen. But when you're doing that, we just want to minimize the impact on the whole team because everybody knows that firing sucks and they feel bad. Even if all of your employees know that it's coming or know that you should be firing that person and they've been waiting for it, it still sucks. Totally sucks. So try and minimize that by thinking through what could happen. Okay. And again, this gets easier. For the firing part doesn't get easier. The logistics part definitely gets easier once you've done it quite a few times. But it's still, again, not fun either way. So step number 4, and this is sort of the outline of the meeting. Okay. So you want to call them in, whether it be to a specific office or if this is virtually, and you want to get straight to the point. Okay, there's no point in small talk because when you actually get to it, it's going to be awkward and weird anyway. So just know that right before the meeting, I usually take a lot of deep breaths, try and chill, pump myself up a little bit, make sure I have something to go by so I don't lose my train of thought and pretend I'm a robot. That's what I try and do too. I care about human beings in general. So for me, I have to try and take the emotion out of it because I'll over talk. And I don't want to be doing that. I want to make it clear and efficient and of course answer any questions, but really handle it with respect and dignity. Okay, so I usually like to say, this isn't working out. Okay, you can also say, I'm sorry, but this is your last day. There's lots of different ways that you could sort of soften it a little bit, but you want to make sure that it's clear enough that they understand from the first sentence that you say that it is not working out and that today would be their last day and that they are fired. Okay, and you don't have to say that right. You don't have to be like, you're fired as soon as they come in or anything like that. But we want to be really, really clear. So you're not just saying, so this isn't really working out. And they're very confused. You want to make sure that that first statement is very, very, very clear. So then what you want to do is you want to sort of explain how this meeting is going to go. This isn't working out. Today's going to be your last day. So up front, I'm going to tell you sort of the reasons why so I can answer a couple questions. And then we're going to go into logistics. That way you understand what needs to happen next. Again, this is not something that I really want to do. I really feel like you're just a poor fit for this specific role. If I were you and hiring you again, I would try and find a role for blah, 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 blah. So what you'd want to do to try and really keep their respect and dignity is not necessarily just be like, you sucked at this, you sucked at this, you sucked at that, right? That's not what we want to try and do. We want to say that maybe they're really, really good for another type of position. Maybe they weren't detail oriented enough for the role that you really needed, but maybe they'd be a fit somewhere else. So please try and be helpful in terms of that. Most likely they're going to be, zoned out, not totally paying attention because they just got hit in the stomach. But that being said, we want to try and think about them as a human being and not just say that they're not good. Okay, that being said, try and be helpful to try and direct if there is maybe another role or type of position that they might be a better fit for. Because remember, this could be really helpful to them in the future for what type of job that they go after. Okay. Most of the time they will ask why or want to know why. So you can go ahead and bring up the 30-day improvement plan that you did if that was the thing, or what the actual records show. We documented that we did a verbal warning, we did this, we did this, we did this. You don't have to go into crazy detail on why. At this point, they already know it's not that big of a deal. They most likely don't want to get punched in the stomach over and over and over again. Then, if anybody does come back and say something, you want to be extremely clear, right? If they're trying to, make sure that you're like, I know I've been doing this, but blah, blah, blah. This happened. I'm working really hard. No, please don't, right? You can say, I understand that you feel that way, but this is a final decision. Okay, because once you're in that meeting, you are not changing it. They cannot say anything that will convince you to change it, right? So then you want to explain the next steps. So then you can go over, I just want to let you know, these are the logistics. So we went through, go ahead and clean up your desk. Go ahead and say goodbye to whatever clients you want or however you want to do that. And I'd have a checklist so you can go over all the logistics that they might need specifically for your company. If you do actually have the final paycheck, let them know this is your final paycheck. If you don't tell them exactly what they need to do in order to get their final paycheck, please submit your hours. That way we can give you your final paycheck. Potentially they might ask about unemployment or a severance. So have that all set and ready to go in advance, or maybe even healthcare. They might be asking about when those benefits terminate. That's going to be something. Remind them of potential non-compete agreements or anything that they'd signed before. Because if they're going to go start a business that takes all your stuff and they signed a non-compete at the very, very beginning, make sure that we are reminding them that those are the logistics and they can't do that. So please just try and give them the most respect humanly possible. I'm sure you already know this, but it will make you feel way better after the fact also. So just a story. I've had a lot of meetings like this that not necessarily very fun. And I remember one time I had a personal assistant. I knew it was time. We had really gone through the improvement plans and I was pumping myself up. She was coming in that day, but it was at my house because personal assistant side. And so that day, for some reason, her car had broken down and she got dropped off. So she had no ride home. And so as soon as she came up, I was going to do it as soon as she walked in, and I almost didn't. I was like, oh gosh, okay, am I going to have to drive her home? I couldn't drive her home because I had the children and we would have all had to go. And I'm like, well, maybe you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to call her a cab or an Uber or something like that. I can do this, right? So sometimes that stuff happens. I'd highly recommend figuring out so you can just get it over and done with right there. So I did it. I asked for the key because she had the key to the house. I asked for a couple other things that she had access to. Again, it is not fun in any way. And I offered to call her an Uber. She did not want that at all. She said she was going to walk home. So it sucks. It really, really, really sucks. And I want you to understand, I know I said sucks like 17 times during this video, but I want you to understand that everybody goes through this and your business needs what it needs. So you need to come from a place of power as best you can. Have somebody to talk to after the fact if you just want to get out all of the crappiness that's going through your head because you feel like a bad human being for doing this to someone else. It is your business that matters most, because if you keep the employees that are not working for you, that means your business cannot thrive. And if your business starts going down, then all of your employees and your family are screwed, right? And that's not what we're here. You are the owner. You have to take responsibility for your organization completely and wholly. And if there are bad employees, you need to get rid of them as soon as humanly possible. That's it. All right, so let me know if you have any questions at all, and good luck. We understand how it is, and this is how you get better and better and better as a business owner, right? And even if it's your managers that have to do this, please show them this video also, so that way they understand that they can do it also. Hope you have a fantastic day. Make sure you go to eventualmillionaire.com/fire to get all of the videos along with all of the worksheets and checklists so you can have an easier time. And then go get a glass of wine or something because, oh my gosh, maybe not Tuesday morning, but yes, it's rough. Go. Please know that you are not a bad human being for doing this, and this is important. Have a fantastic day as best as you can. Take care.